Hello, welcome to The Exhausted Programmer. My name is Alexander, and today we're continuing a series of creating a script that will run bash scripts for us in a nice, pleasant way. And today we are focusing on a few more aspects of creating the fake prompt and dealing with the typing. So in the last video, we focused a lot on doing things with color, making Echo put out color. But the reason we're doing that is because the way we get Echo to put color to the screen is the way I use in my bash scripts to put color to the screen, specifically to create a fake prompt. So I want to start this video, which I'm breaking down into three parts. The first part being creating that fake prompt. You might already have some ideas on how to do it, but I'm just here to give us a starting place and to show you how to do it really easily. The first thing to point out is you already have a prompt here. It has to be put to the screen, whatever colors are being used. You want to mimic, unless you want to do something different. When I first started making this channel, my username was not The Exhausted Programmer on my machine. And so one of the first things I did when I created my fake prompt was create a fake user, or at least a fake username. But I have since made this a part of my actual bash script, or my bash RC. And that's where we can go to get a really easy prompt. So in your bash RC, there's a lot of stuff here. One day, maybe I'll go through and talk about each one, but somewhere there's about a color prompt. And here you see, I actually don't use my username on this machine either. So I just comment this out. I don't delete it because just for a sort of history's sake, so I can know what was there originally. I tend to do that when I customize things, try to keep the original there somehow, usually in a comment. But this is probably what you're seeing, something like it. The Debian CH root, yes, I did copy that over. No, I never use it, but when looking into it, I don't know, maybe I'll use it in the future. So I kept it into my prompt here. But we see the escape codes. I did not write this. This is just how it is. You know, it's not mine because I tend not to do the 0, 1, I just do 1. But we know this is a bright green. This is just a yellow. Actually, it's a bright yellow because this doesn't get undone. And then we go back to a normal color for the colon, whatever the case. You can just copy and paste this string into your echo command to see what it looks like, which it's going to look like whatever your prompt looks like. Of course, you want to get your own prompt set up, and I would suggest setting it to a variable if you are using this in a script. This way you can call it over and over again without having to type it all out. If you watched the last video, you saw that I have a bash color library already that exists. With that, you can write something like this. If you're not using it though, it's not going to actually put the color in, but instead, if you source it like that and then run it, you can use the variables you've set up. This is again why you want to set up variables for this stuff based on how you think of it. And as you see here, bright green, and then yellow, because I think of this as the default yellow, and then the normal yellow as the dark yellow, because that's how I set up the variables, set them up however you see fit. I went ahead and gave it a different location to where we're at, so some directory, as opposed to our home directory, just to show you that this is not bash putting it out, not the bash, the normal bash, this is me doing it with echo. But if you don't want to do variable names, if you don't have the library set up, whatever, you can just hard code everything in there. And for some reason, copying and pasting is tripping me up. But there we go. This will do the same thing. Obviously, I went with a different username and directory just to make it clear that I am doing something different. But it's the same color pattern. Instead of bright green, I hard-coded it. The colon is the little tricky part to not forget if you're just doing this from scratch. But if you're stealing this from your bash RC, it has it, so you'll have it. The second part of this video is to look at PV. PV, if we man it, shows us that it monitors the progress of data through a pipe. This might not seem very obvious on how this will be helpful for us. I think of PV as meaning like pipe visualizer, who knows. But we can use it with echo. Let's see if the copy and paste works here. It does. Here we're going to print hello world and we're going to pipe that through PV. The color in here did apply. Again, this is the default yellow, so what I would call dark yellow in my library. But we see that 17 bytes and, it was at this many kilobytes per second. That doesn't seem very helpful. This never pops up in my stuff. So we do know that the first thing we want to do is to, try to make this quiet. So if we add a -q flag, well, we still get hello world, We don't get the extra output, but it's still not clear what this is doing for us. When it becomes clear is when we add this L flag. You can see more about this stuff in the man pages, but if I put 10, it's going to limit the amount of data that can go through the pipe while it's being monitored. So the Q makes it quiet so we don't see the actual reporting, but the L still limits it. And when we do that with a low enough number, it looks like it's typing. The last thing I want to cover in this video, because I am trying to get to a goal, we need to understand how to control the cursor. Now, right now, I don't do a whole lot with cursor control, but I do have it in my code in case I need it. And it's important for us to understand that with those ANSI escape codes that do colors, we can actually do other things, not just mess with the font, but we can actually move the cursor around. So what do I mean by that? Well, Bash is a little bit aware of how many rows we have, which we can see when we echo columns, that there's actually 95 rows here because this is not a normal or an old-fashioned 4x3 screen. So there's more columns than there are rows, which is actually not rows, it's lines. I try to go for an 80 by 24, but when you have 24 lines, you actually get 95 across. So just something with the widescreen plus these little bars that Windows puts on here. And you can continue on looking at a bunch of stuff, like figuring out exactly where the cursor is and all that kind of stuff. But that's sort of like being a little bit more programmatic in here. We're just being a little bit more making statements. I do need a few more lines of code, so I'm just going to cat out my Bash colors for people who didn't see the last video, just to have a bunch of lines on the screen, which is maybe too many lines. So let's clear. Let's just do head 15 Bash colors. And with this, we have more than 10 lines, which is what I'm really going for, because the way we can get the echo, or the way we can get the output to move the cursor around, again, we're going to do it with echo here, is again using the ANSI escape code. We need a value, so I'm going to do 10 for this one, and then A tells it that we want to go up. A goes up, B goes down, C goes right, D goes left. And when we do this, we see that we are up some number of lines, but if we actually count it, it's 8 lines. And why is that? Because, well, echo wants to put up a new line, so it goes down here and then it goes up to this line, and then of course Bash then creates a new line for the next prompt itself as well. So, I mean, if we think about like echo hello, which is going to look really messy, echo or sorry, when I hit enter, it puts a new line here, and then echo then adds a new line. So Bash put the new line here, and then echo added another line. So that's why I went up 8. But that's okay, because we are just, showing how you can move the cursor. So if you don't want to deal with that echo new line, let's just get back down here. And there we go. We can do this, but we can add in the letter N for no new line. And when we do that, we're actually 1 higher. So something to keep in mind, that there's sometimes new lines forced into your data output. So you might want to test out that your script's working as you want it to, at least when it comes to looks. Now, I did say we can move left and right. This is important to know, but it's also hard to demonstrate. But I found out with this line, which we're going back to colors here because that's where I was at when I was coming up with this example. And we can use the PV to go slowly so we can see it happening slowly. So this will print out hello world. And then this code here, this escape code 5, and then D again for left, will go back 5 spots and overwrite what's there. So when we run this, we get hello world, and we go back 5 spots, and then it changes it. So you could do some neat things like that if you want to show actual corrections on the lines as you're going through. I did something like this to change the color of certain words just so that it pops more on the screen for a short video in a previous video, but I don't find a lot of uses for moving the cursor around. Again, it's there in my code for myself. Maybe you'll have more uses for it, so that's why I'm putting it here. Something that is important is I sometimes do things where I want the output to come out, but I don't want the cursor to be seen. And we can show and hide the cursor. And it's using the same mechanics as before, except for this is the code, the question mark, 25L. And when I hit enter, Notice there's no blinking cursor. If I replace the L with an H, then the cursor is back. L, H, low, high, but it is unfortunate that H isn't for hide, it's for showing. So, you know, this is again why you might want to make it a variable so you don't have to remember that H is show, not hide, or, you know, whatever. Make your own script so that the variables are set in a way that makes sense to you is, again, my suggestion for something like this. All right, I know this video is a little bit short. I do want to keep the series to 3 parts. The next part might be a little on the long side. I haven't written it out yet, but it will be the script that makes the scripts that I use to make these videos. I'll explain what that means more in the next video, but basically I have a way of taking notes and making a list of commands I want to run. I have a script that I then run on that script. I have a bash script that I run on that text script, and it turns it into a bash script that will actually execute how I want it to make the videos run smoother. Again, it's kind of weird that I don't use it for these videos because it would be a great example, but there's some like conflicts with trying to use the variables and escape codes and trying to escape the escape codes, and I just didn't want to have to debug all that. I just don't use my bash script for when I'm doing scripts about my bash script. So anyway, if you have any questions about this, please leave a comment below. If you have any ideas for topics for this channel, I do know what I'm going to do next after this, but I've had ideas in the past that I then abandoned, which is part of the reason why there's a little gap earlier in this year. So I'm always up for new ideas. If you have something that you think might be kind of interesting. There is someone who mentioned something about not liking the bash shell, and honestly, I don't really know a whole lot about different shells and all the different nuances. I've used different shells. I've used different shells on this channel, but I tend to just stick with bash because it's everywhere. But maybe it's worth looking into, I don't know, the Z shell or the fish shell or something like that. We'll see. But I currently don't have plans on doing a video on that, but if you're interested, I might jump into that one way or the other. Of course, there's always the issues we talked about in the last video, that the Windows subsystem for Linux, or at least the terminal window that I use for Windows subsystem for Linux, doesn't have a lot of support for Unicode and other things, and maybe that's where those others shine. Who knows? Anyway, if you liked it, like the video. If you want more, subscribe or come back, bookmark your channel, whatever you want to do, so you don't miss out, and thanks for watching.